It's 22 minutes to 8.
You're watching Breakfast. Now, every year, almost 1,000 people die waiting for a transplant because there aren't enough donated organs. Currently, you have to sign up to become a donor.
So, should the law be changed where it's assumed that consent has been given unless people opt out? Gordon Brown is in favour of that, as are 2/3 of people, according to a BBC poll. Let's hear from Rod Lynette, who's been waiting 4 years for a kidney transplant.
I go to family gatherings and I say, you've been on this for quite a long time now, Rod. You must be further up the list. I said, no, hang on a minute, that ain't the way it works. You know, you're either on the list or off the list. It's like waiting for a bus that never comes. You know, don't let these organs go into the ground. Don't do it. You know, give it, you know, I need a life. I need to, you know, earn money. At the moment, I'm costing the NHS a lot of money each year. You know, if they gave me a kidney 4 years ago, they would have saved a lot of money.
Well, that is the experience of Rod Lynette. Intensive care doctors say, though, they are deeply concerned about any radical changes to the law on organ donation.
Dr Vivienne Nathanson's from the British Medical Association, Imogen Shillitoe from the British Liver Trust, and on slightly different sides of the fence here. Good morning to you. Vivienne, might I start with you? There's going to be there is a government task force on organ donation, which is not expected to recommend presumed consent. Is that right?
Well, we don't know at the moment. That's certainly the rumour. The good news is that the recommendations that they came out with earlier this year about improving the general system so that when people do offer an organ for transplant, we've actually got the facilities to take that organ, to actually use it to benefit people, or indeed many organs from individuals sometimes. So that's been taken into account. But we do hope that the task force will look at this and say the evidence internationally is that with presumed consent, provided you do it right, you can increase the numbers of organs available by 25 to 30%. And that means that fewer people would die on the waiting list, and that indeed more people would get onto the waiting list before they died, because people recognise at the moment they just won't get a transplant.
Well, let's pick up with that with you, Imogen. So it would save lives, wouldn't it, if there was presumed consent?
Organ donation does save lives, and there is a really urgent need for action because the UK has a shockingly poor record of organ donation, and that is costing lives with people dying on the waiting list and people never being listed for a transplant because there is such a shortage and they don't stand a chance of getting a transplant in time.
So presumed consent is a good idea then?
We need a package of measures that will actually improve the number of organs that are available for transplant. We've got some concerns that by looking at a change in the law, that might actually delay these practical measures that could be implemented right now.
I don't quite understand it. How do you mean? Why would there be a delay? I mean, surely if you have a law that says everybody must be presumed to be a donor, that moves things forward.
It could be argued that it could, but you've got to remember that at the moment, organ donation is the gift of life. It is a gift freely given, a precious gift. And that relationship between the donor and the recipient, who never get to meet each other, is a very special relationship. And we wouldn't want that relationship to be damaged unless that was absolutely necessary. And at the moment, it's these practical issues that are posing the problem, not the consent issues.
I mean, it seems that doctors as well, Vivienne, are divided on this, aren't they? What is the issue for them?
I think that people are concerned because it really is the devil in the detail. How do you actually set it up, and how do you make sure that it works so that nobody feels that their views are being ignored? And we believe that a system that actually it takes several years to put in place so that we all have a lot of publicity to put our names on the opt-out register. So if you wouldn't want to be a donor, you put your name on a register. We think only a very small percentage of the population would do that because that's the evidence. And then when somebody dies in the right circumstances, we would still have the doctors and nurses saying, has your relative changed their mind? Is there any way, excuse me, any reason that you know that they would not want to be a donor? And so you would override the fact of presumed consent if people felt that this individual had not got round to putting their name on. And that would protect that relationship of trust, that this was not a factor that was changing the medical treatment plan.
Imogen, in Spain, 35 donations per million people. In this country, where they have presumed consent, in this country, 12.9%. That's sort of about a third, just over a third.
There's a shocking difference there that is costing UK lives. That's why we need to learn from the lessons of Spain. Spain put in place a whole raft of practical measures to improve the numbers of organs that are available. They put in place facilities, better coordination between doctors and nurses that are working with people that are near the end of their lives and are dying, and also with the transplant centres.
So it wasn't just down to
It wasn't just presumed consent. I think, yes, as Vivian said, time to look at these issues and have a public debate is needed, but sadly people on the transplant list just don't have time.
Okay. Thank you both very much for coming back later to debate this again, so we look forward to that. And if you've got any views about this or questions for Imogen or Vivian, do get in touch with us this morning.
OK, it's just coming up to 7:45. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. The main